fights, and nobody can quarrel with that. We as a profession recognize that excellence is at the very heart of the service that we ought to provide to society. We as a profession recognize that we live in a country that desires to be a highly developed country in the next few years, because our vision is 2030. And we as a profession want to be a part of that success. But the question that we must ask ourselves as a profession and as a people, as Kenyans, is it possible that sometimes we focus too much on the hardware and not on the software? And this is what takes me down memory lane. You know, when we were young and when we were students and when we were students in Kiswahili classes, we would be told, wahenga walisema. We are the wahengas. So now, wahenga wanasema. And when wahenga are saying things, they are looking to the past, because the past informs the present and the present informs the future. So today I want to remind you of a number of things that have happened in this country, and to also highlight some of the things that are happening now, that you may think about the future of this country in about 50 years' time. There were hangers on this table, because there are quite a number of wahengas in that table. And there were hangers elsewhere. We'll remember Nairobi. I do not know how many of you lived in Nairobi, but I remember a Nairobi where things worked. I remember a Nairobi where garbage was collected on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. How many of you remember that Nairobi? And I remember during that Nairobi on Saturdays, because that is where when we were at home, we would, as the garbage collectors were coming, and they were coming, and garbage collection looked very fashionable in those days, as they swung and took the bin and emptied it, and as we sang Kamero na Kauti na Kagorokamwe. How many of you remember those days? Garbage collection worked in this city. I remember in this very city when the Kenya bus services actually operated on time, so that if you lived in Jericho, you knew that bus number 7 to Kenyatta Hospital would stop at 7 a.m. and you would be in Kenyatta at 8. I remember those days. I remember the days when you went into a clinic and you had prescription and you had medication inside of that clinic. I remember in those days, the Kenya Railways worked. That there was a second class and there was a first class. I'm not talking about Europe, the younger ones. I'm talking about Kenya. It worked. I remember if you wanted to travel from Meru to Nairobi, there was working public service. If you wanted to travel from Kisumu to Nairobi, there was OTC, and it worked. Things used to work in this country. The question is, what happened? Many of you now remember and know something called matatu. How many of you know how the name matatu came about? Because you paid 30 cents regardless of where you are going. Hence matatu. And they were more disciplined than they are today. Things worked in this country. Today, every journey on our roads, whether you are driving or you are applying public service, is attempted suicide. On a daily basis, each one of us are attempting suicide. And that suicide is something that is with us on a daily basis. If it is not the matatu threatening you, it is some bus from somewhere threatening you, or the now ubiquitous borders who dare to tread where even the angels fear, and even the devil himself. You would think that the border riders have a suicide pact with death itself. Why am I telling you all these stories? I'm telling you all these stories that we may remember that there was a time when things worked in this country. And they worked both in urban Kenya and in rural Kenya. Many of you will not know, but we had what was called the district board schools, even in rural Kenya. Things worked. What happened? Where did the rain start beating us? Which God did we start worshiping that we now don't do things in the right way? In the intervening period, as I grew older, many churches have come about. We have one of the largest number of registered churches in the world. Many mosques have been built. Many temples have been built. Many people have been born again. I don't know born in which direction, but they have been born again regardless. But yet something happened that our professions have suffered. Not only the things that I've talked about, but even in our professions. Whether it's the legal profession, whether it's the medical profession, we now know that you can go to a doctor, and I'm not saying that they are no good doctors, I respect them, but the occasions when you go into a medical facility, and if you want to deliver, you may be subjected to an unnecessary cesarean operation. You may be subjected to an unnecessary surgery. We know how our roads look like, such that we have lost so much faith in our engineers, civil engineers, that the people who built even the expressway that we are so proud about are Chinese, not us. Notwithstanding that we have been producing engineers from the University of Nairobi since 1970. But when it came to building the expressway, we went to China and said, "Oh, mighty Chinese, come, we have failed, build for us." We'll now be celebrating it. Even our architects, we produce them. But you go to the number of buildings that are collapsing in Embakasi and in Zimmerman. What has happened to our professions? This is the question that I'm posing to us. Our accountants, we have no shortage of good qualifications. If you don't call an engineer, Engineer David, he'll be very annoyed with you. We must address our engineers as engineers, lest we invite them to commit murder. Our lawyers also want to be addressed as learned friends, and if you don't, they'll remind you politely at the beginning and rather rudely at the end. I'm a learned person. Architects, you don't just say architect so and so. You must address them. Even in this profession, CS, FCS, and as you call me FCS, even with my rather slim build, I begin to swell along. FCS. But the question is, how are we serving our countries? I'm saying all these so that my sharing with you will be about excellence in service. You know, this country ought to be greater than it is. And it can only be great if we serve her with dedication. The good doctor here, in giving his report, has told us some of the gaps that his research team found. But what I see is the thirst for excellence. Don't you walk into many institutions in this country and you are simply asking for excellence? That services may be rendered in a proper way? This is what we are asking for. And on an occasion such as this, we must ask ourselves, are we excellent in the things that we do? When I was a little younger, I'm growing old rather quickly now, we used to think about the better days. And we thought that those days would come of themselves. We now know better. It is us who must make those days. It is our duty to make those days. So even as we condemn ourselves and judge ourselves sometimes harshly, we must ask ourselves, what have we contributed in the journey of excellence? Because it is a journey of excellence. This institute, if you ask many who are here, do we remember who are the founders of this institute? Do we remember that they made a contribution? Do we remember that their contribution formed the foundation stone upon which we are building? Do we remember that a foundation stone formed the base on which other stones were laid? Do we remember that as we go forward, we have a contribution to make? Do we remember that all that is required of us is to make our contribution in a positive way? How many of you here have ever watched the relay race, the race that I love the most, the 4x100? It is the most beautiful race. In my view, the most technical of the races. It is not just about endurance and speed. It is about coordination and timing. The person who starts the race can be as fast as a cheetah. But if he or she does not hand over the baton to the second person, then the entire team is disqualified. So in the journey of excellence, we are running a relay race. The Wahangers start the race. They hand over the baton through timing, Then the baton is handed over until the race is won. And when the race is won, it does not matter who started or who anchored or who finished. The joy is that the relay team won. That is how we should look at the journey of excellence. Why is it a journey of excellence? Because the starter may not start well, but the mistakes that he or she made are repaired by the person who recovers by receiving the baton well. This is the journey in which we are all involved. It is the journey in which as a profession we are involved in. And the beauty of this profession is that you are involved largely in the private sector. We now know that if this economy, the economy of this country is going to grow, you need members of this profession, men and women who are dedicated, men and women who are honest. And let me tell you, one of the most difficult and dangerous things to be in Kenya today is to be honest. If you did not know. To be honest in this country is one of the most dangerous things. We are a country that celebrates thieves. We are a country that celebrates crooks. We are a country that loves wheeler dealers. And I'm submitting to us that as a profession, we must exercise the spirit and the ghost of thievery and the ghost of wheeler dealing, and embrace the Holy Spirit of integrity. We can do it as a profession because history has demonstrated times without number that integrity is the foundation stone upon which a lasting building is erected. You know, wheeler dealers may come, they may thrive for a time, but history demonstrates that like the dew of the morning, they disappear when the sun appears. So let us not emulate and embrace the wheeler dealers. Your profession is a noble profession. It is an anchor profession. Today I'm inviting you to the table of honesty, the dangerous table of honesty. Is a dangerous table to sit at, particularly in this country. You'll be called names. You'll be maligned. You'll be accused of all sins except two: the crucifixion of Christ and the causing of the Second World War. They'll accuse you of everything. But you must remain steadfast for the sake of this country. You know, I said I had no key and I had no notes. But that notwithstanding, we must now look to the future of this country. This country is a country that is great in prospect. And when the CEO talked about the age of those who are here, we must make a deliberate effort as a profession to ensure that we encourage the younger generation to join this profession. We must ensure that the younger people are equipped with the tools that will help them engage with the world. And we must not only compete with ourselves. You see, the danger sometimes is that we compete amongst ourselves, which is not a useful exercise. You must compete with the best. And I'm happy that we are now going into the region. And I'm happy that we are now leaders in the region. But even when you are saying that you are leaders in the region, Madam Chair, how good is the region? Because you are basically, as I said somewhere only yesterday, we are dwarfs in the region. So you are just 2 inches taller than other dwarfs. So you should not rest on your laurels. Make sure that you are competing with the best in the world. And that is what will make us great. I'm aware that Kenya is one of the leading in this particular profession one of the leading in Africa. But leading in Africa doesn't mean much. Leading in the world is what we want to be. We want to be at the table where others in the world are present at. I don't want it to be said of us when we are good, we say we are the leaders south of Sahara and north of Limpopo. In other words, you are saying that you are leaders in the lower rungs of things. I want us to be the leaders globally, and we can achieve it. And when I see the older people here who have run their course, who have run a good race, and I see the slightly younger ones here, I'm gladdened. I am asking the younger ones to be ready to receive the kind of mentorship that we are talking about. Humility is at the heart of this. Because humility is what allows you to learn, is what allows you to imbibe. Because what is experience? When people say they are experienced, they are saying, I've been around for a very long time. I've made many mistakes. That is what experience is all. I'm now defining what experience is. Forget about the dictionary definition. They're saying, I've been around for a long time. I've walked the same path. I've made many mistakes. I've learned from those mistakes. I therefore have the capacity to teach you to avoid the landmines that I stepped on. That is what experience is all about. So that your journey to success should be much shorter than our journey to success, because you now have the opportunity to be told, don't step on this landmine, don't step on this landmine, don't step on this landmine. And I have no doubt in my mind that when you do so, this profession will be a profession that will be respected. It will be a profession that will contribute monumentally to the country of Kenya and to the East African region. And I'm looking at an Africa that is growing. East Africa has now grown. We now have 7 members. If this profession grows in the manner that it's growing, you'll now be the ones that will be a benchmark for the Democratic Republic of Congo. And the Democratic Republic of Congo, we are talking about 180 million. That is not a small population. You are talking about the possible inclusion of countries in the next 10 years. Even Ethiopia may join us with a population that will possibly be running into 200. So when you are talking about a population of nearly 500 million people that you are going to serve, that is no mean thing. And we ought to be prepared. Fortune favors those who are prepared. And if you are prepared, as I think you are, then I think that we are going to be the leaders in this region. We will be leaders who will be imbued by the sense of integrity, who will have a vision, who will have the ability to contribute to the society in a positive way. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that is what we desire to do, and I think that is what we must do, because we have a duty to ensure that we make this a great country. But this country, as I conclude, is not going to be great if we say with our mouths what we do not believe in our hearts. This country is not going to be great if we make pronouncements and sound bites for the media houses. This country is not going to be great if we don't roll up our sleeves and do that which is right. This country is not going to be great if the milk of humility does not run in our veins. This country is not going to be great if excellence is not going to be our guiding principle. This country is not going to be great if greed is our creed. This country is not going to be great if meritocracy is sacrificed at the altar of mediocrity. This country is not going to be great if we want to reap where we have not sown. This country will only be great when we take a solemn vow that we are going to do good things because it is good to do good things.